Okay, so let's take a trip back to the 17th and 18th centuries. It's this era of really intense art, architecture, and brand new ideas. And when you first look at it, it can seem kind of all over the place, just a wild mix of stuff. But what if I told you there's a single, powerful idea that connects some of its most dramatic and mind-blowing creations?
Seriously, think about that for a second. You've got raw, terrifying emotion on one hand, overwhelming, dazzling spectacle on another, and then cold, precise, intellectual logic. I mean, they seem like they come from totally different planets, right? Well, as we're about to see, they are way more connected than you'd ever think.
Just look at this. On the left, you have pure, unfiltered feeling, a face that is just twisted in agony. And then on the right, you have this explosion of spectacle, a church so detailed it's literally described as visually frenetic. So what in the world is the link between this intense internal emotion and this massive external display? Well, the answer is one word: the Baroque. That single concept is the glue that holds these seemingly opposite things together, and it defines one of the most dynamic and explosive periods in all of cultural history. So, what is the Baroque exactly? Well, at its very core, it's a movement that just absolutely embraces intensity in all its forms. We're talking raw, unfiltered emotion, jaw-dropping, overwhelming spectacle, and maybe, most surprisingly of all, a really deep intellectual passion. So let's break each one of those down. First up, let's talk about emotion. See, the Baroque didn't just want to show you a picture of a person. It wanted you to feel what that person was feeling in the most powerful, direct way imaginable.
And absolutely no one was a greater master of this than the sculptor Gian Lorenzo Bernini. This guy didn't just carve marble, he carved pure feeling. He could take a cold, dead block of stone and make it feel like it had a pulse, like it was breathing and just bursting with emotion. This was a huge change from the calm, sort of perfect art that came before it. The Baroque wanted you right there, in the heat of the moment.
And look, the sculpture isn't just some guy having a bad day. Bernini's damned soul is going for something way, way bigger. This is meant to be a universal symbol. It's the feeling of any soul, anywhere, confronting absolute, eternal terror. It's a primal fear that we can all recognize, captured forever in stone. But Baroque emotion could also be incredibly personal, really intimate. Take a look at his bust of Costanza Bonarelli. Notice those tiny details. Her lips are just slightly parted. Her hair's a little messy. It feels like we've literally just walked in on a private, passionate moment. This is not a stuffy, formal portrait. It's real, it's raw, and it's completely alive. Okay, so now let's see how all of that intense emotion connects to our second big idea: spectacle. If emotion was the internal goal of the Baroque, then overwhelming grandeur was for sure the external one. The whole point was to just blow your mind, to awe your senses with spaces and things that were simply staggering to look at. I mean, just take a look at this staircase at the Würzburg residence in Germany. Now, a staircase is just for getting from one floor to another, right? Well, not in the Baroque era. No way. Here, it becomes a stage, a theater, a reception hall of unbelievable splendor, all designed to impress and totally overwhelm you from the second you walk in. And just how overwhelming are we talking about? Get this. The massive fresco painted on the ceiling above that single staircase covers around 600 square meters. That's not just a pretty painting, it's a statement of absolute, magnificent power. And this obsession with spectacle wasn't just happening in Europe. It took on this whole new, incredible life in the Americas, in what was then called New Spain. Here, a style known as Mexican churrigueresque cranked the visual intensity up to 11. The idea was to cover every last inch of surface, creating this visually frenetic experience that just completely wraps you up in glorious, almost dizzying detail. But here's the twist. The Baroque wasn't just about big feelings and flashy spectacle. It also had this really serious intellectual side. This was a movement about thinking just as much as it was about feeling and seeing, and it often did it in some really new and surprising ways. And the key to unlocking this side of the Baroque is a literary device called the conceit. Now, a conceit isn't just your simple metaphor, like love is a rose. No, it's a complex, often shocking comparison between two things that seem to have absolutely nothing in common. It really forces your brain to work and make a brand new connection. And the most famous example of a conceit comes from the poet John Donne. He's about to leave his beloved for a long journey, and he compares their two souls to a drafting compass. I know,
It sounds totally weird and not very romantic, but stick with me. This is where that intellectual passion of the Baroque really, really shines. So here's how it works. He says their two souls are like the two legs of a compass. She is the fixed foot that stays put, right in the center. He is the outer leg that has to roam around. But, and here's the genius part, because she stays so firm and stable at the center, his journey always ends up being a perfect circle, which means he is guaranteed to end up right back where he started, home with her. You see? That's not just a sweet, sentimental idea. It's practically a mathematical proof. Donne is using the cold, hard logic of geometry to analyze the deep, powerful emotion of love. And that strange, brilliant mix of passion and reason, that is the Baroque in a nutshell. So let's put it all together now. We've got intense, raw emotion. We have overwhelming, jaw-dropping spectacle. And we have this passionate, witty intellect. How does it all come together to create one single unified vision? Well, you can see right here how it all connects. It doesn't matter if it's the raw emotion in a Bernini sculpture, the overwhelming spectacle of a Mexican church, or the brainy passion of a John Donne poem. It's all part of the same grand project, trying to capture human experience in its most intense, complex, and magnificent forms. So why did all this happen then? You have to remember the Baroque was born in an age of total upheaval. It was a time of brutal religious wars, but also of incredible new scientific discoveries that were changing how people saw the universe. In a world that felt chaotic and brand new, the Baroque was a way to make sense of it all, either by using reason to create order or by just leaning in and embracing the full, glorious drama of life. And all of this leaves us with a pretty interesting final thought. The Baroque masters used overwhelming spectacle, but it was never just for show. It was a doorway to get at deeper emotional and intellectual truths, which makes you wonder, doesn't it? In our own age of nonstop digital spectacle, are we using it to reveal something more, or just to distract ourselves? How do we find that same balance between overwhelming our senses and actually stimulating our minds?